Hey there and welcome to Get Indie Gaming, and to our much requested follow-up video where we're counting down 12 more indie games out this year we're most looking forward to. You've inspired us to keep an eye out for yet more amazing looking indies, and we've scoured the depths of the indie game world to bring you the most exciting and innovative titles on the release horizon. So without further ado, let's dive into our countdown of 12 more indie games out in 2023 we think you should add to your wishlists. Let's get all of this going, and in alphabetical order we have After Us, which is expected out on May the 23rd. Rooted heavily within environmentalism, players take on the role of Gaia, the personification of nature within a world that has been exploited to the point of extinction. Players will need to travel across what's a post-human world in order to rescue the souls of extinct animals. From what we can tell, After Us is a platforming action-adventure within a semi-open world, which reminds us of Journey from all the way back when, given the camera positioning and how the gameplay looks from within the most recent trailer. That said, there's definitely combat in After Us, although we're thinking it's likely to be a platformer at its core. It's coming to PC via Steam, and from what we can gather, it's also headed to the PlayStation and Xbox platforms. Next up, Angerfoot has you play as a rogue vigilante within a city whose name isn't particularly advertiser friendly, so I'll leave you all to Google that one. We've all spent hands-on time with this over the past few weeks, and it's honestly so much fun. With a rather simple but beautifully done gameplay loop, you're dropped into a given situation where you're needing to kick down doors and take down groups of thugs, rinse and repeat. It's a beautifully visceral experience that plays out at breakneck speed, accompanied by an absolutely banging soundtrack, as the kids say. This quite frankly is utterly ridiculous, but likely to be a Game of the Year material for how fun it may all end up. You can still grab the demo as this video airs from the Steam's homepage, and there's a link to this and every other game in the rundown down in the video description. Moving onwards with Berserk Boy, which has all the trappings of a modern retro-inspired homage to countless classical platformers. There's a Mega Man bullet gun in there, chained dash attacks, and many other things you'll recognise from games all the way back when. There's also something delightfully called the Berserk meter, which you fill by way of chaining combos together before you're able to roll out a special ability to lay waste to your foes. It looks incredible, and with the soundtrack coming from Sonic Mania composer T. Lopez, this already looks to deliver a fine but perfect piece of nostalgia when it's out later in this year on the PC. Next up, and the odd one out in this list as it's already out, although we missed it until a few days ago. Children of Silent Town is a creepy, dark adventure game where you play as a young girl living within a village where the inhabitants are convinced monsters from a nearby forest are responsible for the ongoing disappearance of a number of villagers. It's a traditional point-and-click adventure that uses a song-based puzzle mechanic, which is really enjoyable and in places rather clever. The art style and associated music is also able to add an element of uncomfortableness, if that makes sense, something that's perfectly and deftly implemented. The characters you meet, the places you go along the way, are also handsomely done, with this being well worth a look at for any fans of the genre. This came out in January for the PC. Moving onwards, now we were in two minds about having this in the countdown, as given the size of the team working on it, while not too sure if Hades 2 can really be considered an indie game. Either way, we know many viewers, us included, are exceptionally excited to see how this turns out. This time you'll play as the immortal princess of the underground within an even bigger in-game world than the original, with the full might of Olympus behind you. It's out in early access, quite possibly later in the year, and it's likely to be awesome. Next up, and yes, hands up. This is a huge risk to add The Last Night into this rundown, and yet I do so with an abundance of caution and with best intentions. While there's limited news on this game following this trailer from back in E3 in 2017, there's every reason to think this game is still in production and a going concern. With a new publisher on board and full details of who is working on the game listed on their website, this no longer feels like vaporware, although there's still no news of a possible launch timeframe, with the release date on the game's website saying when it's ready. You can find the links to the game's website and Steam homepage in the video description, with this listed as coming to PC and the Xbox. Moving on, something new from Yacht Club Games, the developers you probably know best from their Shovel Knight series from the past decade or so. In this new project, Mina the Hollower continues the studio's pixelated art style and throwback musical heritage. I caught up with a buddy a few days ago who played the demo at the recent PAX East just gone. They were literally gushing about how enjoyable the 10 or so minute demo was. They were particularly happy with the combat, with him playing 3 different weapons over the course of his playtime. They liked the whip, with it being a standard choice, although he mentioned playing with a hammer that was slower to use but had much more of a punch. He was also happy with the way you can use a dagger, which he says is faster in use but doesn't dish out quite as much damage. After playing, he said he left the booth area with a big old grin on his face. So what more could you want from such a demo? Mina the Hollower is expected to launch on the Xbox, the PlayStation, the Switch, and the PC. Up now, and after a troubled development, Open Roads looks likely to pop out at some point in 2023. Inspired by finding a box of old notes and letters hidden away in the attic of their house, a 16-year-old girl and her mother set off on a road trip, driving through Michigan along the US and Canadian border. You'll play as Tess in what's likely to be a highly narrative-driven story, where you'll explore the environment and interact with objects to uncover the story and information about taking the plot forward. I'm interested to see how the relationship with the mother and her teenage daughter pans out, and of course the secrets and plot twists there's no doubt awaiting us as we crack on with the game. While personally 2022 was the year I played an awful lot of story-driven games, so far this year I've fallen off that kind of bandwagon, so to speak. Hopefully this lives up to our expectations with it headed to PC and all of the usual consoles.
I don't know what we'll find, but whatever.
Next up, we have Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals. The original needs little introduction, with it often being the game I'd suggest to anyone new to playing video games or looking for something that little bit different. Set 5 years after the original game, this sequel features a new character called Riley, having returned back to her hometown to investigate a set of radio signals that are fairly recognisable to anyone who's played the original game. If you haven't seen it yet, and more than 300,000 people have, you can find a link in the description or click on the card in the top right hand of the screen. Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals is scheduled to come out on PC, the Switch and the PlayStation. Given the studio is now owned by Netflix, we can also expect to see this coming out on mobiles. Let's continue with Replaced, which has me really excited. I adore my sci-fi, retro-futuristic action platformers, and all of this alongside The Last Night. I have them both penciled in as my go-to games of choice within the genre when they finally launch. I mean, let's sit back and look at this. The game's style with the pixel art and dramatic lighting has me transfixed. It looks astonishing. As for the gameplay, well, players will take control of an AI, which feels very 2023, that's become trapped inside a human body as it makes its way around a dilapidated city within an alternate reality 1980, while looking to find answers for its current predicament. Replaced is headed to PC and the Xbox, with it also launching on Xbox Game Pass 2 at some point later this year. Of all of the games in this rundown, the Plucky Squire has the biggest wow factor of any of them, and it's games like this and what this is likely to offer here that keeps me coming back to smaller, rather the risk-adverse AAA side of the market time after time. As you can see from the trailer, the Plucky Squire blends 2D and 3D gameplay and storytelling all within an art style I'll perhaps somewhat lazily compare to anything that might come out of Pixar Studios. You'll play as a character called Jot, where I'm assuming you'll face a number of puzzles and challenges and a mix of gameplay styles. And while we don't have a firm release date, it's coming to PC, the PlayStation, the Switch, and the Xbox. And finally, the last game of this rundown of more indie games we're looking forward to seeing out this year is Venba. I'm definitely of the opinion cooking for and eating with loved ones is a cornerstone of my life at home. Our kitchen is always the busiest room of the house, and it's usually where you can find me when I'm not at work or in my little studio playing, making, or writing about video games. Venba will see you try and recreate your mother's family cookbook, with you needing to puzzle your way in finding the correct ingredients, processes, while also introducing you to Tamil culture. I think it looks and sounds delightful, with it coming to PC and the Switch at some point later on this year. With that, many thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. If we've missed anything in this or the original video we did in January, please let us know in the comments, and we look forward to seeing you all here again soon for another indie game video.